Chapter 4. On the Clock. The pre-dawn air was crisp as Jinho approached the bakery, keys jingling in his hand. He spotted Mincio already waiting by the door, her nose twitching slightly as she inhaled the morning air. "You're early," he said, unlocking the door. Mincio adjusted her apron straps.
"The morning air is cleanest at this hour. No contamination from street food vendors or delivery trucks yet."
She wrinkled her nose.
"Though someone 3 buildings down is already cooking kimchi stew."
Jinho flicked on the lights. "That's impressive. I can barely smell the coffee I'm drinking."
"Speaking of coffee," Mincio froze mid-step, her eyes widening. "Did you reorganize the storage shelves yesterday?"
Here we go again, Jinho thought. In the week since Mincio had started, he'd learned that her extraordinary sense of smell came with some unique quirks. "Just restocked them," he said, heading to the prep area. "Same arrangement as always." Mincio made a sound like she'd bitten into something sour.
"The cinnamon is next to the nutmeg again, isn't it? Oh, sweet merciful muffin tops, I can feel the clash from here."
"They're just spices."
"Just spices?"
Mincio's voice rose an octave.
"The cinnamon's warm, sweet notes are being completely overwhelmed by the nutmeg's sharp, aggressive aroma profile."
She was already pulling boxes from the shelves.
"It's like putting a classical quartet next to a heavy metal concert."
Jinho started measuring ingredients for the morning's first batch of bread. They'd been stored that way for years.
"And it's a miracle you haven't had an olfactory disaster."
Mincio climbed onto a stepladder, rearranging bottles.
"The vanilla extract especially needs to be elevated. It's suffocating down there with the almond and maple."
Is this what going mad feels like? Jinho wondered as he watched her create some sort of elaborate organizational system that seemed to exist only in her head. The bell above the door chimed as their first customers entered. Jinho turned to greet them, only to hear a horrified gasp from Mincio.
"Dragons, donuts, who put the chocolate croissants next to the garlic bread?"
She was already pulling trays from the display case.
"The garlic's savory notes are completely devastating the chocolate's delicate profile."
"Mincio, we have customers."
"They'll thank me when their taste buds aren't assaulted by confused flavors."
She began rapidly redistributing pastries.
"The butter croissants can handle the garlic's presence, but the chocolate ones need protection. And the cinnamon rolls should be elevated to catch the morning air current."
The customers watched with bewildered expressions as Mincio muttered about scent harmony and aromatic balance, creating what looked like random arguments, but which she defended with passionate intensity.
"I assure you," she told the startled businessman, "your morning coffee will taste 37% better when the pastries are properly arranged to create an optimal scent flow."
At least she's enthusiastic, Jinho thought, trying to maintain some semblance of normal service while Mincio transformed their display case into what she called a symphony of scents. The morning rush hit full swing, and Jinho found himself juggling regular bakery chaos with Mincio's continuing crusade for aromatic perfection. She was in the middle of taking an order when her head suddenly snapped up.
"What in the sourdough starter hell?"
She vaulted over the counter, causing several customers to jump back.
"Who put coffee beans next to the flour?"
"That would be me," Jinho admitted. "I was restocking."
"Oh, crumbs and corruption!"
Mincio was already wrestling with the heavy flour bags.
"The coffee's robust oils will seep into the flour's delicate composition. It's an olfactory catastrophe waiting to happen."
A line was forming at the register. "Mincio, the customers."
"They'll survive 10 seconds without coffee. This flour might not."
She hugged the bag protectively.
"Don't worry, little one. I'll find you a safe spot away from those aggressive beans."
Jinho watched her disappear into the storage room, still cooing into the flour bag. The system said we had special resonance, he thought. It failed to mention she might be completely insane. The situation reached its crescendo when Mincio discovered the walk-in refrigerator's organization, or as she termed it, this random chaos of conflicting aromas.
"How do you even function like this?"
She began pulling out sticky notes and markers.
"We need a proper system. Color coding by scent profile is the only solution."
Jinho peeked into the refrigerator where Mincio was creating what looked like a conspiracy theory wall made of sticky notes. Is this really necessary?
"Necessary?"
Mincio laughed, but it had a slightly manic edge.
Tell that to the poor cream cheese that's been sitting next to the blue cheese. The trauma, the contamination. She slapped a pink sticky note on a shelf. This section is for light floral notes only. No exceptions.
And the blue section?
Robust earthy undertones permitted?
She said it like it should be obvious.
But only if they've been properly introduced to their shelf mates first.
Jinho watched in a mixture of confusion and concern as she meticulously labeled each shelf, creating a classification system that would probably require a master's degree to understand. I should probably be worried, he thought, but somehow this feels like the least strange thing that's happened since I became a battle baker. Jinho was halfway through cracking eggs for the pastry cream when Minseo's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist with surprising strength.
What in the name of cursed cookie cutters are you doing?
She demanded. Jinho blinked at her. Making pastry cream? Like I do every day?
Not with those eggs. Minseo's nose twitched. Something's wrong with them.
They're fine. Jinho picked up one of the eggs. Fresh carton. Expiration date is 2 weeks away. No cracks.
You absolute burnt bottom. Dates aren't everything.
Minseo snatched the egg from his hand and held it close to her nose.
There's a disturbance in their aroma profile.
A disturbance? Jinho couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. What are you, some kind of egg Jedi?
Mock me all you want, but these eggs are hiding something.
She began removing them from the carton one by one.
The shell composition has a subtle variation that suggests... Son of a burnt biscuit, we don't have time for this.
Jinho tried to grab an egg back.
The morning rush isn't over, and we need this cream ready for... By the sacred rolling pin. Will you trust me?
Minseo clutched the eggs protectively.
Get 12 separate bowls. We're testing each one.
That's ridiculous.
What's ridiculous is risking an entire batch of pastry cream because you won't take 5 minutes to check.
The scary part, Jinho thought as he retrieved the bowls, is that she's starting to make sense. They cracked each egg individually. Minseo examined each one with the intensity of a crime scene investigator. The first 11 looked pretty normal, making Jinho increasingly impatient. See? They're fine. Now, can we please... He stopped mid-sentence as Minseo cracked the 12th egg. The yolk was slightly off-color, the white showing an unusual consistency that would have been impossible to detect once mixed into the batch.
Sweet cinnamon Satan,
Jinho whispered. Minseo's expression was grimly triumphant.
The shells were hiding a secret, weren't they? Now, about those vanilla beans in the top cabinet.
Before Jinho could protest, she was already climbing onto the counter, pulling down jars and containers. Her nose worked overtime as she examined their contents, creating separate piles with frightening efficiency.
These 3 vanilla beans have early-stage mold growth, she announced, setting them aside. Not visible yet, but give it 2 days. This bag of almonds is 1 day away from turning rancid. We need to use them today or toss them. And this cream... She unscrewed a cap and sniffed. Subtle fermentation. It's fine now, but by closing time it'll be questionable.
Jinho watched in disbelief as she moved through their inventory like a human quality control machine. Don't you think you're taking this a bit far?
Butter my biscuits and call me cursed, but do you want to serve subpar pastries?
Minseo was now organizing fruits by ripeness.
These peaches will be perfect by tomorrow morning. The plums need to be used in the next 4 hours. And these berries... She clicked her tongue disapprovingly. They're trying very hard to look fresh, but I know better.
How can you possibly...
Every ingredient has a voice, Jinho. A scent signature that changes as it ages.
She began creating an elaborate spreadsheet on her phone.
If we track each item's peak freshness window, we can maximize quality and minimize waste.
The system chose her for a reason, Jinho realized. But sweet, merciful muffin top, she's intense. Okay, he said, pulling out a notebook. Tell me exactly what you're picking up and we'll create a proper system. Minseo's eyes lit up.
First, we need color-coded labels for different freshness stages. Red for use immediately, yellow for optimal within 24 hours, green for peak freshness approaching.
What in the whisk have I started? Jinho muttered, but he kept writing. Over the next hour, they developed a comprehensive quality control system that would have impressed health inspectors and military commanders alike. Mincio created detailed freshness timelines for every category of ingredient, complete with specific storage instructions and optimal use windows. The dairy products need daily morning and afternoon checks, she explained, drawing a complex flowchart. Eggs get individually inspected before each use, no exceptions, and we rotate the fruit displays hourly to maintain ideal ripeness distribution. This is absolutely insane, Jinho said, looking at their new system, but also kind of brilliant. Mincio was already printing labels. We'll need to train the other staff on basic scent recognition. They won't have my sensitivity, but they can learn the fundamentals. Oh, and we should implement a triple check protocol for weekend deliveries. One step at a time, Jinho interrupted, seeing the familiar gleam of obsession in her eyes. Let's master the basics before we turn everyone into scent detectives. Fine, Mincio conceded, but I'm not compromising on the vanilla bean quarantine protocol. As Jinho watched her meticulously organizing their new quality control station, he couldn't help but smile. Maybe this is what the system meant by resonance, he thought. Her seemingly crazy attention to detail perfectly complements my Battle Baker abilities, though I really hope she never finds out about the magical ingredient storage dimension in my oven. Jinho! Mincio's voice snapped him back into reality. Are you listening? I'm explaining the critical difference between the scent profiles of aging cream and intentionally cultured cream. Sorry, he said, picking up the pen. Please continue explaining how to sniff out Dairy Rebellion. Mincio rolled her eyes. You absolute stale sourdough. This is serious business. Serious indeed, Jinho thought as he continued taking notes. But at least our pastries will be perfect, if we don't go crazy first. What do you mean you lost it? Jinho stared at Mincio, who was frantically searching through her bag. I didn't lose it, she insisted. I specifically remember placing grandmother's vanilla extract on the third shelf from the top during our last... She glanced around the empty bakery. Our last special inventory check. You? Jinho's eyebrows shot up. Miss, the cinnamon can't be within 3 feet of the nutmeg actually misplaced something? Mincio's cheeks flushed. For the love of Levin, I know it sounds ridiculous. Ridiculous? You spent 20 minutes this morning organizing sprinkles by density. That was completely necessary. The heavier sprinkles were crushing the delicate one's spirits. Jinho pinched the bridge of his nose. And now you want to activate an unstable magical portal because you misplaced a vanilla extract? It's not just any vanilla extract, Mincio said quietly. It's been in my family for 3 generations. The glass has absorbed decades of brewing history. The aroma profile is irreplaceable. Why do I feel like I'm going to regret this? Jinho thought as he approached the industrial oven. System, he called out. We need to make a quick retrieval run. Well, butter my bread, if it isn't my favorite disaster duo. Coming back for a midnight snack? This isn't a joke, Mincio interjected. We need to... Emergency retrieval protocol initiated. Warning, portal stability at 89% and declining. Hope you packed your running shoes, kids. The oven door swung open, revealing not the familiar dungeon kitchen, but a twisted labyrinth of interconnected chambers. The walls seemed to pulse with an unsettling, doughy texture. Oh, crumbs and corruption, Jinho muttered as they stepped through. This looks different. Portal stability, 85%. Better make this quick, unless you want to become permanent kitchen fixtures. Mincio's nose twitched. The air currents are wrong. The spice signatures are mutating, becoming more aggressive. A ghostly figure phased through the wall beside them, trailing clouds of cardamom. Its body was composed of partially transparent dough that shifted and swirled with specks of spice. Sweet cinnamon Satan! Jinho pulled Mincio behind a crystallized spice formation. What is that thing? Cardamom spice dough wraith, Mincio whispered, her nose working overtime. The cardamom's been corrupted, twisted into something angry. Portal stability, 78%. Having fun yet? I'd hate to wrap this up early, but you're on a roll. Get it? Because dough rolls? Not now, system. Jinho readied his rolling pin. How do we fight something that can walk through walls? Mincio closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. Wait, I can track our previous path. The residual aroma signature is faint, but it's there.
like a ghost of yesterday's baking.
They followed Mincio's nose through the maze, dodging wraiths and scaling walls made of massive spice crystals. The system's warnings became increasingly urgent. Portal stability, 65%. Don't mean to add salt to the situation, but you might want to pick up the pace. They entered a massive chamber and froze. Dozens of hulking figures lurked in the shadows, their doughy bodies bulging with mysterious meat fillings.
Meat-stuffed dough golems, Jinho growled, because regular dough monsters weren't bad enough. Dragons, donuts! Mincio ducked as a meat pie whistled past her head. They're using our own recipes as weapons.
Portal stability, 52%. Things are getting crusty in here. Maybe try asking the golems to meet you halfway? No? Tough crowd. Jinho deflected a barrage of pastries with his rolling pin while Mincio guided them toward a narrow passage.
The vanilla scent is stronger this way. We must be getting close.
A golem blocked their path, its filling bubbling ominously. Mincio surprised Jinho by pulling out a chef's knife.
Knife arts! Precision cutting!
She called out, her blade glowing with a soft light. The golem's doughy exterior split perfectly, its filling spilling harmlessly to the sides. Portal stability, 41%. Talk about cutting it close. But seriously, folks, tick-tock. They raced through chambers filled with increasingly bizarre mutations. Bread that screamed when approached. Pastries that skittered across the ceiling like spiders. Cookie dough that formed itself into tiny armies. What in the sourdough starter hell happened to this place? Jinho panted as they ran.
The dimensional barriers are breaking down, Mincio explained, her nose leading them deeper into the maze. The recipes are evolving, combining in ways they were never meant to.
Critical warning. Portal stability at 33%. Not to be a pessimist, but you're really baking it down to the wire here. They reached a massive door made of a crystallized honey and caramelized sugar. Beyond it, Mincio's nose told her, was their goal. But the door was guarded by the largest, most horrifying fusion of bread and meat they'd seen yet. Son of a batch, Jinho whispered, gripping his rolling pin tighter. Please tell me that's not what I think it is. The creature turned, revealing a face made of perfectly laminated croissant layers filled with what appeared to be every meat in existence. It let out a roar that smelled like a butcher shop having an identity crisis. Portal stability at 25%. I'd make a joke about being in a jam, but this really takes the cake. Any ideas? Jinho asked, backing away slowly. Mincio's eyes narrowed as she studied the monster's structure.
Actually, yes, but you're not gonna like it.
Why not?
Because, she said, readying her knife, we're going to have to break every rule of proper ingredient separation I've ever believed in.
The lowest chamber opened before them like a bioluminescent bakery fever dream. Streams of vanilla-scented light pulsed through the air in spiral patterns, emanating from dozens of dough creatures that moved with unsettling grace. Holy pixie pastries, Jinho breathed. What are we looking at? Mincio's nose twitched rapidly as she processed the complex aromatic landscape.
The vanilla extract, it's changed them. They aren't just ordinary dough beasts, they're evolving.
Well, this is a first. Looks like your vanilla extract really stirred things up. You might say it's created quite the splash in the gene pool. Not now, system, Jinho muttered, watching the creatures. Their bodies were intricately patterned with swirling designs that glowed with a soft, warm light. They moved in coordinated groups, performing what appeared to be a complex social behaviors. The vial sat atop a shrine that appeared to be made from fossilized dough, its contents catching and refracting the ambient light.
We can't just grab it, Mincio said, studying the creature's movements. Look at their behavioral patterns. They're organized, intelligent.
Jinho reached for his warrior's sourdough starter. Maybe we can communicate? Oh, attempting interspecies dough-plomacy? This should be interesting. Jinho activated the starter, feeling the familiar connection to the living dough around him. The creatures immediately responded, their spiral patterns pulsing in synchronized waves. They're using some kind of dough sign language, he realized, watching their movements. The patterns, they're telling a story. Mincio's eyes widened.
The vanilla extract, they're saying it awakened them, gave them consciousness.
She sniffed the air carefully.
The aromatic resonance patterns suggest a highly sophisticated social hierarchy.
One of the larger creatures approached, its body forming intricate symbols that shifted and flowed like living calligraphy. What in the wandering waffle? Jinho watched as the symbols rearranged themselves. They're actually trying to talk to us. Mincio stepped forward, pulling out a small measuring bowl.
They see the vanilla extract as sacred, but also understand its power should be shared.
She carefully uncorked the vial.
3 drops. A fair trade.
How do you know that's fair?
The same way I know when the cinnamon needs to be 2 shelves away from the nutmeg.
She measured the drops with surgical precision.
Trust me.
The creature's pattern swirled faster as Mincio placed the bowl before them. What followed was unlike anything Jinho had ever witnessed. The colony arranged itself in a complex spiral pattern, with the bowl at the center. Each creature moved forward in turn, absorbing an impossibly small amount of the vanilla extract through their dough membrane.
Son of a burnt biscuit, Jinho whispered. Are they sharing it? Not just sharing. Mincio's voice was filled with wonder. They're performing precise molecular distribution. Each one is taking exactly what it needs to maintain their collective consciousness.
Now this is what I call a balanced breakfast. Get it? Because they're maintaining balance? No. Tough crowd. The ritual continued for several minutes, the creature's patterns growing more intricate with each exchange. Jinho watched in fascination as they passed the drops through their entire community, leaving no member out.
It's beautiful, Mincio said softly. Their aroma signatures are harmonizing, becoming one while remaining individual.
Finally, the last creature completed its absorption, and the colony reformed its spiral pattern. The leader approached the shrine, gently lifting the vial with appendages made of perfectly laminated dough.
They're returning it, Mincio said, her nose working overtime. And they've used exactly 11% of the contents. The remaining 89% has been enriched somehow, enhanced by their collective processing.
Congratulations! You've just achieved the first recorded peaceful negotiation with dungeon entities. I'd give you a medal, but I'm all out of gold leaf pastry. The creature presented the vial to Mincio with a series of elegant dough signs. They're thanking us, Jinho translated, his sourdough starter humming with activity. They say the vanilla extract helped them achieve consciousness? Awareness? The translation is a bit unclear. Something about rising beyond mere ingredients. Mincio accepted the vial with a respectful bow.
Their aromatic signature has changed. It's more complex now, layered with understanding.
Not to interrupt this beautiful moment, but portal stability at 15%. Time to wrap up this tea party. The creatures formed an honor guard, creating a clear path back to the upper chambers. Their patterns pulsed in what was clearly a farewell gesture. As they hurried back through the dungeon, Jinho glanced at Mincio. You know, for someone who freaks out about spice shelf organization, you were surprisingly calm about negotiating with sentient dough creatures. Mincio clutched the vial carefully.
Everything has its proper place and purpose, Jinho. Sometimes that purpose just happens to be achieving consciousness through vanilla extract exposure.
10% stability! Let's move it unless you want to become permanent members of the Dough Collective! They ran for the exit, leaving behind the gentle pulsing lights of the vanilla-infused colony. Just before they reached the portal, Mincio paused.
You know what's really interesting? She said thoughtfully.
What?
Their organizational system for vanilla distribution was actually quite similar to my shelf arrangement theories.
Jinho groaned. Oh, for the love of leavening! 5%! Less talking, more running! They dove through the portal just as it began to collapse, tumbling onto the bakery floor as the oven door slammed shut behind them. Cutting it close there, kids! But I guess you really rose to the occasion. Mincio held up the vial, studying its contents in the fluorescent light. The vanilla extract seemed to shimmer with a subtle inner light, forever changed by its time among the dough beings. You know, Jinho said, picking himself up off the floor, somehow this still isn't as weird as watching you reorganize the sprinkle cabinet. Mincio's only response was to clutch the vial closer and mutter something about needing to update their ingredient charts. Jinho yawned, checking his watch. It's almost midnight. We should probably... Wait! Mincio clutched the vanilla extract to her chest.
Don't you want to know what it can do now? After everything those dough beings did to it? What in the sourdough starter hell? Minseo, we just escaped a collapsing dungeon dimension. Can't this wait until... Look at the aroma profile. She thrust the vial under his nose. It's completely transformed. The molecular structure has clearly been altered by their collective consciousness. Jinho rubbed his temples. How can you possibly know that from smell alone? The same way I know you had kimchi for lunch and your socks don't match. She was already pulling out mixing bowls. We have to test it for science. For science? It's midnight. But Minseo was in full experimental mode, pulling ingredients from their perfectly organized shelves. Just one test batch. What's the worst that could happen? Given our track record, dragons made of sourdough, possessed pastries, sentient sprinkles. She measured flour with surgical precision. 1 drop. That's all we'll try. Jinho knew that look in her eyes, the same intensity she got when organizing spice racks or correcting the angle of cooling racks. Fine. 1 test, then home. They made a standard bread recipe, adding a single drop of the enhanced vanilla. The dough seemed to shimmer slightly as it rose, but otherwise appeared normal. 26 hours later, the test loaf was still as fresh as the moment it came out of the oven. Sweet, merciful muffin tops, Jinho whispered, poking the perfectly springy crumb. How is this possible? Minseo was already documenting everything in a notebook. Let's try cookies next. 2 drops this time. The resulting cookies had an unusual effect. Each customer who tried one broke into a nostalgic smile, describing memories of baking with grandparents or childhood kitchen adventures. We need a system, Minseo declared, surrounded by paper and colored markers. These magical ingredients can't just go anywhere. Their aroma signatures are too powerful. Jinho watched as she began creating an elaborate map of the storage area. Is this really Dragon Donuts, of course it is! She was drawing concentric circles around the vanilla extract's designated spot. Regular vanilla needs a 20-centimeter neutral zone. This enhanced version, at least 50. You're making this up. Am I? She grabbed his hand and dragged him to the spice shelf. Close your eyes. Now, smell. Jinho humored her. I smell spices. Move 3 steps left. He did. Suddenly, the individual scents became clearer, more distinct. Holy croissants, he muttered. How did you... Aromatic feng shui. Minseo was back at her map. Every ingredient needs its own space to breathe, to express its full potential. They spent the next hour creating what Minseo called scent zones. She moved with the intensity of a general planning battle strategy, but her enthusiasm was infectious. The citrus family goes here, she explained, rearranging shelves. But lemon and lime can't be direct neighbors. They're too competitive. We'll put orange between them as a buffer. Jinho found himself caught up in her excitement. What about the spices? Separate wing entirely. Cinnamon is a natural leader, so it goes at the front. But nutmeg needs distance. It's too aggressive. We'll create a neutral zone with vanilla beans as mediators. You make it sound like they have personalities. Don't they, though? She held up 2 vanilla beans. This one is clearly more outgoing. It needs to be with the bolder spices. Jinho laughed despite himself. And the other one? Shy. It works better with delicate ingredients. See? The aroma profile is much softer. As they worked, Jinho noticed Minseo occasionally wincing or rubbing her temples. You okay? Just a lot of scents competing for attention. After a while, it gets overwhelming. Jinho thought back to his grandmother's kitchen. What about herbs? What about them? My grandmother used to clean her cutting boards with different herbs for different ingredients. Said it prevented flavors from mixing. Minseo's eyes lit up. Jinho, you absolute genius! We need cleaning solutions! They experimented with various herb combinations, creating specific cleaners for each type of equipment. Rosemary and sage for the bread bins, lemon thyme for the pastry station. Each solution helped neutralize lingering scents that might overwhelm Minseo's sensitive nose. By the time they finished, the bakery had been transformed. Each ingredient had its precise place, marked with exact measurements for optimal placement. Equipment gleamed, each piece treated with its own herb-infused cleaner. Jinho watched as Minseo moved through their newly organized space. Her movements were easier now, without the constant tension of fighting overwhelming scents. Better? She took a deep breath and smiled. A real smile, not the strained one he'd grown used to seeing. So much better. It's like everything finally has room to breathe.
Jinho leaned against the counter, exhausted but satisfied. For the first time since Mincio started, the bakery felt truly balanced, like they'd found the perfect recipe not just for their products, but for working together. You know, he said, for someone who can smell unripe fruit from across the room, you're surprisingly okay with magical vanilla extract that bends reality. Mincio carefully adjusted a jar exactly 2 centimeters to the left.
Everything has its place, Jinho, even reality-bending vanilla.
She paused.
Though we should probably keep it at least 75 centimeters from the dimensional rift in your oven.
Jinho groaned. Oh, for the love of leavening. Jinho held up a small cloth bag the next morning. It made you something.
If this explodes, I'm blaming you.
Mincio took it cautiously, then froze as she caught the scent.
Wait, is this from the...
Yeah, figured those spice elementals might be good for something besides trying to kill us. She tied it around her neck, then closed her eyes. A smile spread across her face.
Oh, wow.
That good?
It's like, you know when you've been at a concert and your ears are ringing, and then suddenly everything goes quiet?
She took another deep breath.
It's like that, but for smells.
The morning brought their usual Saturday rush, but something was different. Mincio moved through the crowds with an ease Jinho had never seen before. No more wincing at perfumes, no more frantic rearrangements to avoid the clash of coffee and pastries.
Your usual, Mrs. Lee?
Mincio was already reaching for the hot cross buns as their regular customer approached the counter. Jinho raised an eyebrow. How did you...
Dental cleaning. Always comes here right after.
She handed the wrapped buns across the counter.
Have a great day, Mrs. Lee.
They fell into a rhythm as the morning progressed. Jinho found himself starting orders before Mincio called them out. She had bags ready before he needed them. They ducked and weaved around each other in the tight space behind the counter, never colliding, barely needing to speak. Incoming, Jinho called, sliding a tray of pastries toward her. Mincio caught it without looking.
Table 5 needs these, and you're about to...
Hit the coffee pot. He course-corrected his elbow just in time. Okay, that's getting weird.
Says the guy who fights dough monsters in his spare time.
The rush finally slowed around 4. Jinho was counting receipts when Mincio suddenly stiffened. You smell something weird? He asked, recognizing her expression.
Yeah.
She moved toward the counter, frowning.
It's like, you know that smell when you open a really old book?
Not really.
Well, it's that, plus...
She wrinkled her nose.
Star anise? And something else. Something that shouldn't... I mean, how can something smell like midnight?
Jinho scanned the counter and caught a glimpse of something shimmering among the receipts. Before he could catch it, it dissolved into sparks of light. Each one released a distinct aroma before fading away. What the... He blinked at the empty space. Mincio was still sniffing the air.
17 different types of star anise. All magical, all impossible.
She adjusted her charm.
And now they're gone.
Silent System Log. Guild Observer Status Update number 247. Resonance levels at 173% of projected parameters. Should we be worried? Jinho asked, watching the last sparkle fade. Mincio shrugged, already turning back to reorganize their display case.
Probably. But right now I'm more worried about these croissants. Someone put the chocolate ones next to the garlic again.
Jinho watched her work, trying to shake the feeling that they'd missed something important. But the evening shadows held their secrets, and the day's receipts told no tales.